Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast, is sponsored by Jaguar Land Rover Laval. Get out of the big city and experience a construction zone-free test drive. There is such a thing.
The Standing By podcast with Terry DeMonte, that's me, and Ted Bird, that's
That'd be me.
It's episode 6.
Episode VI, as we like to call it in Rome.
Well, it's going to be a classy episode because, as you can see, we already have company.
That's right.
And before I introduce you to our guest, we must say thank you to our friends at Jaguar Land Rover Laval.
They're back as our title sponsor for a second year in a row. We thank Nino and Renato Di Cubelis, the owners of Jaguar Land Rover Laval. And our biggest booster over there, their marketing director, Adrian McGrath, who has set Terry and I up with a Land Rover Discovery Sport this week so that I can squire Terry around town. That's a pretty snazzy vehicle, that one.
Sure is. It's got a nice elegance and super comfortable, and you even figured out how to get the phone on it.
I did, and it only took me 2 days. Actually, I got that figured out on the first day.
Yeah.
Beautiful vehicle, and you can get all kinds of different brands of luxury vehicle, but what really separates Jaguar Land Rover Laval from the pack is the customer service. They take a customer-centric approach. It's part of their culture, and it starts at the top with Nino and Renato, who are two of the nicest guys you would ever want to meet. And if you don't believe me, go up and meet them. Go up there and say, hey, I'd like to meet Nino and or Renato, and if they're not knee-deep in something, they'll come down and say hello to you. And then they'll hand you off to one of their sales reps and go from there. And you might find yourself leaving there in a beautiful Jaguar or a spectacular Land Rover. JaguarLaval.ca or LandRoverLaval.ca. If you're in the market for that kind of a vehicle, check them out. You can go elsewhere, but don't make a purchase until you go there and see what they've got at Jaguar Land Rover Laval.
If you're a regular visitor to the podcast, you'll know this is a bit of a different start, bit of a different format. As you can see, we already have company here. This is the fabulous Maureen Holloway. Mo and I have been friends for 1,000 years. Maureen is a born and raised Montrealer who went to Toronto and became one of Toronto's biggest radio and television stars, and has just recently left that long-time gig and has the same kind of footprint on her back that I had on mine. And we're excited that she's here to tell us about her adventures and travels. Hello, Mo.
Hi. Hi, Terry. Hi, Ted.
I had no idea you were a born and raised Montrealer.
I'm from the West Island.
Get out of here.
Yeah, Sacred Heart girl, right?
Yeah, I'm from Dollard.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah. When did you move away?
My family moved here with the Great Exodus, right? And
okay, yeah.
But I went to boarding school at Sacred Heart up on the hill.
Yep.
And then I did move away physically, but then I was on the air with you guys for like a decade.
Yeah, that's true.
Lest you forget.
Yeah, but was I part of the show when she was on the air?
Yeah. There's been many go-rounds with Mo,
Yes.
And it started at the Mix. And then it was at Shome, and then I brought you with me to Calgary.
That's right.
And then when I went back to Shome, you came back again.
Yeah.
And in Calgary, you were like a co-host with me.
I was on with you 4 times a morning.
Yeah.
But Ted, I was on with you and Andre Mesner of Catfish.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, God rest his soul. I think about him so often, Mo, and I do things on the air every day. Little bits that I learned or stole from Andre along the way. Like whenever it's a nice day, I always say, I may take my blouse off. Which is that's so Andre. It's a nice day, Andre. I know, I may take my blouse off.
God, he's funny. He was funny. I remember ordering a gin and tonic, and he said, actually, it was a friend of ours, and he said, what are you, a widow? And then 2 weeks ago, my husband and I were in Miami, and we decided, well, we're going to smoke cigarettes. All right, don't tell anybody. But we're on vacation, and it's nice outside, so we're standing in line, and John steps up to the bodega window and says, "I'll have a pack of 100s." And I said, "What are you, divorcee?" And that was an Andre comment. So
Yeah.
it's just in your mind.
Oh, God rest his soul. What was he known as on the air in Ottawa and in Toronto? He was
Catfish Morgan.
Catfish Morgan. Yeah, but he came to Montreal and it was smart. He went back to his original francophone name, Andre Maisonneuve.
Yeah. Yeah, like you say, God rest his soul. He was such a good guy.
Yeah, far too young.
Yeah.
He went far too young.
Mo, how long were you at CHFI?
I was on a 5 years.
5 years.
A 5-year contract that was not renewed.
Yeah, and then prior to that, you were at
prior to that, I was at Q107,
For
and then I was
1,000
there
years.
for 15 years.
Yeah.
Did you work at any of the big stations in Toronto? For people who don't know, it doesn't get any bigger than CHFI and Q107.
Yeah.
And whilst I was on at Q107, I was also doing a feature across the country, including those 4 breaks that I did with Terry in Calgary and Rock 101 in Vancouver, Q104 in Halifax. So I've worked with Jake Edwards. I've worked with
John Derringer.
Derringer for years. For years. And then before that, I was at the mix here as well as the mix in Montreal. So I was on Montreal. I've been pretty much consistent. So
I still get people who ask about you, and I'm sure you've seen it on social media because I know I have, Mo. People miss you, and that's nice.
Yeah,
hey, you get a lot of lovely comments about people who miss you.
Same to you, Terry, and same with you. I left under. They didn't renew my contract for and it was an ugly situation, and I had to sign a letter saying I would never say anything negative about Rogers now and forever.
Yeah.
So I can't.
Yeah. I'll do it. I'll take care of that for you.
So you had to sign a letter, or you chose to sign a letter?
Well, I just at that point I just wanted to get the hell out.
It wasn't worth the fight.
With the kind of skullduggery that went on and the disingenuousness that went on and the ugliness that is now corporate entities in all businesses, including media, there was a lot of what I would regard as skullduggery and unfair, just really unfair, classless, underhanded, not dignified treatment of somebody who was beloved by the audience, beloved by her coworkers, and was treated, I think, in a very piss poor way. And it's not. Believe me, it's not unique to Rogers. They all have now tackled this model where you do afternoon drive in Calgary and you do afternoon drive in Toronto. You do middays in Lloyd, it's
all at the same time.
Yeah. Everybody's doing 6, 7, 8 jobs, and Mo and I have talked about this. I feel like it was like the meeting. It's like The Godfather. I think there was a meeting of the head of the 5 families, and at that meeting, it was decided that all of the well-paid, highly regarded, massively listened to talent be disposed of and replaced with people who would work much cheaper. And that's what's happening across the business.
Well, that's an ironic metaphor that you use the 5 families, because if it were still families running the companies, I think it would be different, and people like you and Mo would be still gainfully employed at big radio stations, but the families sold to corporations, and that's the problem.
I think, Mo, you would probably echo this. I'm not complaining. I had a wonderful run. I enjoyed every single minute of it. And it's just the way it ended was shitty. Yeah.
I had a lady call me up the other day to pick up clothes for, I think it's cerebral palsy. And I said, yeah, I got a bunch. And she said, is this Maureen Holloway on the radio? And I said, yes. I feel sorry if there's another Maureen Holloway out there who's not on the radio. But I said, yeah. And she said, oh, well, you're not on anymore. And I said, really? I said, no, I'm not. And she said, you know what? You had a good run.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, she's not wrong.
No,
I did
she's
have
not.
a good run. But you wouldn't say that to to a teacher or a doctor or
No.
any other, you would not feel that it was your right to tell them when it's up.
Yeah.
Well,
But, sorry, go ahead, Ted.
I was going to say it could be worse, Mo. Last summer, I was hosting a comedy show at a local eatery, and Pat Hickey, who writes for the Montreal Gazette, was one of the performers that night, and he was driving there with his wife, and he said, she said, "Who's hosting the show?" And he said, "Ted Bird." And she said, "Ted Bird? I thought he died."
Christ.
We're none of us that old, for God's sake.
Jesus. But
my speaking of other professions, my younger son Ronan, whom you know, Terry, is in his first year of law school and also getting a master's in English, and he's going to be a judge before he's 30, and he should be because he's very judgy. But he's interviewing for a job this summer, working for as a research assistant for a law professor at U of T, who started teaching in 1966.
oh my gosh, you're kidding.
So we did the math, and he's highly regarded and super renowned. Same thing with justices.
Yeah,
the guy's 82.
Right. Well,
and so
we talked about this just the other day with Ted and I were talking about this in the green room. Leslie Stahl is 80 from CBS. Al Michaels, who called the Super Bowl, is in his late 70s. Yeah. Down in America, being really good at your gig and earning a good salary to be really good at your gig is not considered something that will cost you your job.
No. Well, okay, but let's cards on the table here, and I'm not saying this with any grievance because it's overdue. But I mean, I know for a fact that one of the reasons why I was pushed aside was, yes, money. I'm expensive, and deservedly so. I've been in this business almost 40 years, never been let go. It's awful to be let go at the end of your career for the first time. But also maybe too old for the gig, and certainly too pale. And I'm not saying that with grievance. It's a different world now. And the onus is on representing the people that listen to you. And I'm all in favor of that. I didn't particularly want to have to pay the price personally, but I understand that is also part of the deal. I mean, listen, I came up in radio when there were no women. Yeah. Period. Yeah. Unless they were traffic reporters, which is how I started. Now being a woman isn't enough. No. No, it isn't. So that's part of the deal. You and I'm no lawyer, but never saying anything again about a company. I'm not. I know. When Ronan gets, when he passes the bar, ask him if that'll hold up in court, because I don't think it will. But he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to practice that kind of law, and this is kind of in keeping. He's interested in a constitutional law or environmental law. He has no desire to go work on Bay Street. Right. So, and maybe that might change, but that's where he's at. Yeah, it seems to me, I've more and more, because I know so many people in the industry still. If I hear the word NDA one more time, they're threatening all of these kids who are in the business. NDA being non-disclosure agreements? Yes. Non-disclosure. Those are illegal. They will not hold up. If anybody asks you to sign one, sign away, because they do not hold up, and they will be made illegal. Yeah, and they treat it, these wannabes in these corporate offices are treating it like they work for the goddamn White House, like they're with the Secret Service. We're going to offer you $31,000 a year to do afternoon drive, and if you tell anybody, and we find out about it, I mean, I'd be too embarrassed to tell anybody. Have you ever? Yeah, I would be too. Have you ever heard of anybody who lost a gig because they violated an NDA? It's all theater, Mo. It's all theater. It's all Terry. It's all of that stuff, and fostering. Silly. We have so many other uplifting things to talk about, but I really you really had a wonderful run. Like here, the people inside the building. I've talked about this before, and I won't go on and on about it. But the people inside the building where I was working, inside the building in Montreal. They said, we're going to make sure you have a nice send-off. And they did. And they did. It was really nice. Yeah.
Matthew Wood, who was the program director there, and my wife Jess, and a couple of other people worked very hard to make sure I had a nice send-off. The company had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I know.
And the company would have been happy if they could have saved that money.
Yeah.
But the skullduggery and the way that you were, ushered out the door was unfortunate.
Did you get to say goodbye, Mo?
I did get to say goodbye, but that one of the one of the conditions was that I signed that letter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I got the hell out. And honestly, and listen, the two people that took over for me are lovely people, and there's nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
And I wish them well, but I have not listened to that station. In fact, I've barely listened to any station since the day I walked out. And I stopped, and about 4 weeks later, my two sons said, "Mom, you've got to stop following everyone you know from the station on social media. You have to, because it's making you sick."
Yeah.
So I did, and it was so cleansing. And so I spent 2 months feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
Well, here.
And there's people who are going to listen to this, Mo, and say, "Fuck off, you guys complaining about your great lives. That's not what we're doing." And
I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it. And
yeah,
I'm
me
getting back to
too.
something you said at the beginning of the show. So the listeners, the listeners who still follow me on various social media platforms are amazing, and I miss them as much as they miss me.
I was yesterday or today or 200 years ago, I rented a car at the Dorval Airport, and when I was finished, the two people behind the counter said, I'm sorry to bother you, but are you Terry DeMonte from Chaume? And I said, I am. And they said, "Oh, I thought so. We recognized
I thought you died."
And they said, "We thought we recognized your voice, and we want you to know we miss you on the radio."
Yeah.
And I said, that's such a lovely compliment. It was really, really, really nice. But it's time for new chapters. And I know you've already begun because you've been to hither and yon. Please tell me what have you been doing?
So what have I been up to? So, the feeling sorry for myself took a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then
was there wine involved?
So what's that?
Was there wine involved?
Oh, there was wine. There still is wine.
Yes, there will always be wine.
Getting up in the morning makes it easy for wine to be involved. I'll tell you that. But so John and I went to Charlevoix a couple of times. So we're looking at buying some property there north of Quebec City, which is really funny because I tell Montrealers that and they go, "Where? You guys don't know about it any better than Torontonians.
No.
It's like the most beautiful area in the country." So that's something we're thinking of doing. And I'm going to do a podcast with my friend Wendy Mesley.
Now there's
that's
for two big
that's
names.
News.
Yeah, that is news. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to tell you guys, it's not easy getting it off the ground, and the learning curve is incredibly steep.
It is.
And Wendy is a renowned journalist who also was given
talk about getting the bum's rush.
Yeah.
Right,
for all the wrong reasons.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I think she's got the print of 2 feet on her back.
She used the story is legendary, but most people got it wrong. She quoted someone and used the N-word in a meeting at the CBC. Yeah. This is after a 40-year career of being one of the best journalists this country's ever produced. And she was quoting a black journalist.
In a meeting.
She never said that word, and she never insisted that she should. And somebody complained, and it being the CBC, and it being like a month after George Floyd was murdered, she paid the price with her entire career and maligned and reviled. And now what most people seem to remember is, "Oh, you're Wendy Mesley. You're the one that said the N-word." That's all they know.
God, just awful.
So she's angry.
In the context that she said it, it was...
a meeting.
To me, it was. People have taken the whole thing out of context and demonized her, and wrongly so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, she's lovely, and we've become really good friends over the last few years. So we thought we would team up because she wants to be funny and I want to be earnest.
I think that's a great idea.
It's fantastic. It's just terrific. She's probably
like, Wendy, it's not easy to be funny, okay?
No, but as an anchor person, like, especially at the bloody CBC, the staid, good old CBC, she must be, because I've met her and, had sat across from her with a martini or two. She's a riot.
She's hilarious.
And she must be bursting at the seams to get that out.
But she's such a nerd, I got to tell you.
So do you have a format in mind or just freewheeling?
Yeah. No, it's called Women of Ill Repute. Although she's the one of ill repute. Everybody loves me. And the plan is we've only done a demo just to sort of feel each other out. And the learning curve is huge technically and all that. And then the idea is that we're going to have a third person, not necessarily a woman. It could be a man, a woman, and everything in between. To talk, somebody who's pushed the envelope, somebody who's either found themselves in a pickle or in an awkward situation and has used that to their advantage. So, Wendy was like, oh, we'll get Jane Fonda and Cher. And I'm like, wow. This is a woman who admittedly had someone carry her shoes into the studio for her for 30 years at CBC.
But she's got a big national profile, so she's probably pretty plugged in.
Yeah.
She is plugged in.
Yeah,
so,
but
we're working on that, and
it's hard.
It's not easy.
And we did what we called. We didn't know what we were doing either, and still don't. We called it season 1, and we did 10 episodes, and now this is season 2, and we thought we'll get guests, and it's not easy.
We've got me.
Well, listen, we're thrilled that you said yes, because it's you. There's so many podcasts out there.
I know,
right? So
right? We all want to be Smartless. We all want to be. But we don't want to be Joe Rogan.
If you're Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes, that's a pretty good Rolodex those guys have.
Right?
When you can get Paul McCartney to come on your podcast. That's a pretty good get. So, our hallmark get is you. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here. So it's called Women of Ill Repute. Yes.
And we're going to try to get this. We're going to try to get 4 episodes in the bag.
Okay.
For starters, because we don't have sponsors coming out of the gate. I mean, the fact that you guys did is testament to your reputations in Montreal. So we're going to just put it out there and see if anybody will want to pay for that. And also, it keeps us busy. So
yeah, it's fun to do.
And we're having a blast.
Yeah.
And it's a great project for a couple of friends to do. And I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm doing that. And I'm also hoping to write. I've got, a couple of everybody says they have a book in me. Novelists love that, right?
Yeah.
It's like everybody says they have a podcast in them, and broadcasters love to hear that.
Yeah.
But I would this is the only opportunity I'm ever going to get to do that. So I'm going to plug into that.
My wife was trying to help me get along a memoir. And it's tough.
It's tough.
Writing is, to sit down every day, and a couple of people who are good writers, Terry Mosher, who's written all kinds of books, he said to me, sit down and get at least 4 or 5 pages done a day, and then go back to it. And that's those scenes of authors sitting in the room in front of the typewriter doing this.
Yeah,
that's a thing. It's not easy.
I've been reading a lot of books on writing. Stephen King, whether you like him or not, he can write a book.
Oh, no kidding. And doesn't he they just shoot out of them, don't they?
Well, he said, he's written a book called, and if you're an aspiring writer, you've probably read it or heard of it. He's just got a book called On Writing, very simple. It's very, very entertaining. But one of the things that he says, and I'm going to try to do, is that you need to treat it like a job. So you sit down from 10 to 1 or wherever your circadian rhythm takes you, and you sit down. And you don't leave. You've got 3 hours, and you're going to try, you can do it by page. You can say 5 pages, or you can just say 3 hours. And if you can't think of anything, then fine. You can twiddle your thumbs, but that's your job, is to sit there for 3 hours and stare at, the dust motes in the sunlight or whatever, and see and if you can't come up with anything, then maybe this isn't for you.
Right.
Another thing I've heard is write what you know.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm writing about fairies in 14th century Austria.
Well, I think that goes without saying.
I want to talk about
That old trope.
I want to talk. This is Maureen Holloway, who's our very special guest, and I've got a million other questions for her. But before we continue, I want to say thank you to our friends at Matelas Bonheur. They are my friends who've been selling mattresses for over 30 years now in the Montreal area. A family that somehow, for some reason, became obsessed with making sure that Montrealers, Quebecers, and now people all across the country with the internet get a better night's sleep. And that's their thing. That's their passion. When you go to a Matelas Bonheur store, all you will find are mattresses, pillows, linens, things that pertain to a better night's sleep. You'll be warmly welcomed in a beautiful store that's only dedicated to a good night's sleep. Can't buy a washer there. You can't buy a recliner there. It's just all about a better night's sleep. And you'll be warmly greeted, asked a couple of questions, and you will find the right thing that will change the way you sleep. Whether, your kids have gone off to college and you're going to redo the guest room, or you're moving or downsizing, or maybe like me, you were sleeping on a mattress for far too many years, and it's time to get it updated. And they'll tell you all about the latest sleep technologies. There's 18 locations in and around the Montreal area. You can visit them online at matelasbonheur.ca. Mo, let's talk about some of the really, when you look back, what are some of the highlights? Like you saw Led Zeppelin in England. That's one that comes to mind, and I wasn't there. So, but you've told some great stories over the years. Have you done any reflecting and thought, oh yeah, that was great?
Well, no, yeah, I have and I haven't. Sometimes the kids will be talking about somebody, and I'll go, "Oh yeah, I met them."
Yeah.
We've met everybody.
Yeah,
right? We really have.
Yeah. Well, you were in Toronto. You met more people than we did. More people went through Toronto than Montreal.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And big stations, and we had a lot of great guests, and up until the pandemic.
Right.
They were coming through, and does anybody? Well, geez, the greatest interview I ever had was Leonard Cohen.
Wow.
Oddly enough, who came through Toronto, although of course he's Mr. Montreal, or was. And
was it a tough interview?
What's that?
Was it a tough interview, Leonard Cohen?
No, because I was 22 and he had all the time in the world for me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Gotcha.
I look back on that now. I thought he was this decrepit old man, and he was probably in his 50s, and he was absolutely charming. I mean, you wouldn't believe, and funny, and I think he was promoting it was around the same time that Jennifer Warnes had put out Famous Blue Raincoat.
Right.
He was talking about, I was asking him, how do you feel when people tell you can't sing? And he said, well, the same way Bob Dylan feels. Whatever. So yeah, that was like, and then I had no idea at the time what a legendary. I mean, I did, but I didn't, because his renown has only grown since he's passed away.
Right.
But the privilege that I had, and going back to what we were talking about earlier, radio was as important as television, if not more so, when it came to music, obviously. So we had access to legends that came through. And not anymore. And I think this is going to change everything too. Yeah. I mean, I interviewed Michael Bublé in this room, actually. Mm-hmm. I mean, he wasn't in this room, I was. And he was really impressed by my IKEA bookshelves. He's like, Bublé, you live in a $25 million mansion in Vancouver. You can get these.
And you can have somebody put them together for you.
I did not have. So I think that's going to change. I think that we're going to be doing more, or rather broadcasters and media people will be doing all their interviews on Zoom or Skype or Teams or whatever you use. And we won't have that opportunity, those awkward moments of meeting people in person and having to make small talk before the microphone.
Well, that's kind of unfortunate. Really, yeah, that's kind of too bad. Let me ask you this, Mo. When TV came along, everybody was saying, well, that's the end of radio. TV's going to wipe out radio, and it didn't. Now the internet has come along, and I think it's different. We've already seen it. It has changed the radio landscape, and not for the better as far as radio goes.
And yet, yeah, and I agree. I think television and radio will meet their demise because of the internet, because the internet will replace both of, and maybe even films as well. I mean, why would you go to other than the experience of seeing something on a massive screen, when you can stream it at home in your very comfortable place with your friends in your screening room, if you've got, that kind of setup, then why would you go out?
All forms of legacy media. We had a columnist from La Presse in here the other day as a guest, Mark Cassavy, and La Presse has not had a print edition for years. It's all online now.
And they have more readers now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll tell you that the internet can't replace, and I'm thinking more again about my youngest son who took a year off and then started law school, and then, was sent home to do classes in December when we went into lockdown again, and hates doing, there's something about being in person in school when you're called upon. It's that can't be replaced. I think the learning experience still, certainly if you're a med student. I kind of hope you had some hands-on experience there.
Well, and I think even for, my wife Jess is just, she's 3 or 4 months into a new job in Vancouver, and she's not been into the office. And you know what happens when you get a new gig? You like to get into the office and sort of learn the lay of the land and whose desk is where and what door you shouldn't go into, and that all of that's disappeared. And I think that changes the dynamic of companies.
It sure as hell does. And then also, and I'm not even kidding, what about office romances?
Yeah.
I mean, really? High five.
Exactly. Yeah. What about office romances? Never thought of that.
How's that going to happen?
But, and when you think of, and this is one of the great things that I tell younger broadcasters, when younger broadcasters ask me anything, when we end up talking, I talk about the fact that Ted and, it'd say, well, we'd talk about, things that we did, like what did you guys do for, what kind of promotions were you involved in? And I said, well, they used to fly us, KLM flew us business class to Amsterdam, where we spent 2 weeks in 5-star hotels, eating fancy food and going up and down the canals. And those, it's hard to believe those days ever existed. Remember, win a trip for 2 to pick the destination.
Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Terry and Ted. That was the name of the promotion. We did that 3 years in a row.
And didn't you
really?
Yeah. And didn't you broadcast from London? Which, if you're a morning show host, the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, we did we went twice. Once this was when I was at Q107. We went to the Led Zeppelin reunion concert. I'm going to admit something that I swore I would never, ever, ever admit. We left early.
Left the concert early?
Yes.
I've heard that song before. Let's roll.
Let's go.
It was pretty much, yeah. No, it was just that we weren't given seats. We were in the press room.
Yeah.
So you might as well be at home.
Yeah.
And then they allowed us to come into to walk into the back of was it at the Big O? It was not Big O.
The something zero, the zero something.
The something zero.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Might as well be the Big O.
Yeah.
And we're at the back, and for some reason I was wearing high heels. I don't know what I was thinking. And I don't know what I was thinking. And we're standing there. And we're like miles away from the stage. And yeah, there's a screen behind it. But again, it was like, and you're miles away from downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take you an hour and a half if you leave with the crowds. So we said, by we, I mean my husband and I guess some of the people we were there with said, well, let's just go. And as we're walking out, there were people 100 deep around the what do you call them, the fences that were being held back, and they saw us walking out, and you could hear people going, "You're not going, are you?"
And one of the things I liked about that trip was because of the time difference, I thought there's got to be a way we could learn how to do a morning show and live in England.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Were you broadcasting live?
Yes.
From there? So your morning show started at noon then?
Yeah.
It started at noon.
Yeah.
Yes. Just the greatest thing ever. Can I? You know what? Now that you've made that confession, I will make a confession. I don't even remember the year, but but it was at I think it was a big outdoor show. It was in the 80s, and it was out in this big rolling hills outdoor venue that they have in England, and it was
Nebworth.
That was it. Nebworth, and it was a contest to go to Nebworth with the radio station. And there was me and a couple of friends, and I was completely clueless. And we go to Nebworth, and we get on the train, and we go to Nebworth, and it's raining like it's Iwo Jima. Like it's like the islands rain. It's like raining sideways. And we get off the train, and there's a sign that says, concert this way, follow the arrow. And the mud, people are losing their shoes in the mud because it's so deep. And we make our way through the mud up to Nebworth, and it's kind of like a rolling hill, and we couldn't get near the stage. And the sound was being fed through a series of speakers. 100,000 people there. Yeah. And I was wet, and I was covered in mud, and it was, it was Phil Collins singing, but it was, da 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 da, like it was. And I finally said, we got to go.
We got to go.
And my producer said to me, you can't go because we have to phone into the radio station. And I said, that's okay. And we went back to the hotel, and we put on the BBC.
Turned on Phil Collins.
No, we put on the BBC, who were covering it live.
Oh.
And I said, yes, it's quite the scene here. We're not exactly Edward R. Murrow. And I put the microphone in front of the speaker in the hotel room with a drink in one hand and the microphone in the other.
I think that's quite brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah, but
that's worse.
I was it is worse, isn't it? It's worse. Worse than leaving Led Zeppelin early.
Because you were duplicitous.
Yeah, I know. I feel shame to this day. I feel shame.
I think that's quite creative. I'm impressed.
I'm for it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Poseidon.
I'll tell you another quick story.
Yes.
It was actually a very positive story, really nice story. It was they were having that party for the Tears Are Not Enough thing.
Yes.
That they put on, and it was at Casa Loma in Toronto, and it was just everybody who was in every Canadian famous person that you could imagine was there. And I was there with my little tape recorder, and I had to interview all these people, right. And I didn't know them. This was again just at the beginning of my career. And Bryan Adams, who was the first person I ever interviewed, I said, "Oh, hi, Bryan. Hi, it's Maureen Holloway." That's how I talked then. And he said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I said, I need to get some tape from people here. And he said, "Here," he took my hand, he took my tape recorder and the microphone and went all over the place. And we talked to every famous person from Loverboy to Leona Boyd.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Wow. What a nice guy.
Yeah. Very nice man, Bryan Adams.
He was in London. I didn't look him up when I was there. Hi, it's Maureen Holloway.
I saw Bryan Adams at the Nob Hill Tavern in Scarborough in probably 1980 or 81.
Yeah, I saw him at the Norlander Hotel in Winnipeg.
Is that right?
Yeah, 1981. Yeah, he was wearing I was going to say, I can't. You're not supposed to use this term anymore, but he was wearing what they call a wife beater. A
singlet.
A singlet.
Yeah.
Yes, quite. The singlet.
When we saw him, I saw him with Jerry Forbes. Jerry and I were at the Nobby getting all liquored up. Yeah. And Bryan Adams had on a T-shirt that was a cartoon strip. It was covered in like I forget what the cartoon strip was. And I said, "Nice shirt. I read it on Sunday." And he laughed.
Hey Mo, was there a time when I remember when I was first in Toronto and I was with Jess and I said, Mo's a big deal in Toronto. Everybody knows who she is, and she's friends with Marilyn Dennis and all of the hoi polloi in Toronto know who she is, and she turns in those circles. Do you remember where you went from the 22-year-old who didn't know anything? Do you remember a time where you went, "Oh, I'm not that person anymore. Like, I'm not that, get a load of me, I'm famous," but the moment where you think, "Oh shit, this is working." Like,
don't you know who I am moment.
yeah, well, I don't know about that. I don't know how to put it, but you know what I'm saying, right?
I know exactly
'Cause
what you mean. And I've never made the mistake. Unlike Montreal, Montreal's a very small town in a lot of ways, right?
Yes.
And you can't walk down the street, either one of you, without people knowing who you are. And that's probably true to this day, but Toronto's very different. You know, you're here today, gone tomorrow. So
Right.
I never, ever made the assumption that anybody would know who I was, because that disaster lies there.
Yeah.
And nobody really gives a rat's ass. But there was a time I was doing I was a Q at the time, and they had a huge billboard campaign. They had a few. They put a lot of, this is back when they put a lot of money into advertising. Some places still do. And there was a poster of me in Derringer, and it was a billboard the side of a building.
Yeah.
Like the whole side of a building, like a 40-story building. It was huge. And John, my husband, was working in the building across the street at that time. And somebody said, "How come you don't have a picture of your wife in your office?" That's her.
That's fantastic. It's a great story.
Yeah.
No, but was there a moment where you go, because performers are notoriously insecure, was there a moment where you thought to yourself, okay, I belong here with these people? No,
I
never
don't think you should say that, eh? No, never.
No,
never. It's our
nothing-
insecurity. John said this to you and me once. We were, I don't know where we were, in Chicago or someplace like that, one of these boozy trips that we took.
Yes.
And John, my husband, who's just, such a wonderful person in so many ways, and really gets this industry, and he's, by the way, he's an engineer.
Yeah.
He's in real estate. He has nothing to do with radio. And he said to Terry and me, Ted, he said, "You guys, you're just wait. We suffer from imposter syndrome. He said, you're just waiting for somebody to turn around and go, ha! You don't know what you're doing." Never
Well,
did,
listen,
never will.
I've always said that on the celebrity food chain, local radio personality is just above rodeo clown and just below team mascot. More people know who Youpie is than know who I am.
Yes.
And that keeps it in perspective for me. And I've always found the recognition is just enough that it's flattering.
Right. But
Yes.
I want to.
I agree.
I want to make something clear. I'm not talking about get a load of me.
Yeah.
Don't you
No,
know
I
who
understand
am?
that.
I'm
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about, there were people in the industry. When I first walked into the building on Fort Street in Montreal, there was George Balkan and Gord Sinclair and Ted Blackman and these giants of the business that I listened to when I was a kid. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't belong here.
Yeah.
That I don't know, when they find out, I'm never getting in this club. And then there was a time towards the end of my run where I thought, well, I guess I do belong. I guess I do know what I'm doing.
And then they said, get out.
And then they pushed me out. So you're right, Mo. You should never think that.
I went from being in absolute awe of the people
Yes.
that I was privileged to work
Yes.
with, to thinking, you know what?
Yeah.
Not so. And this is going to sound awful, but it's like I think I can do better now. I think,
Right.
and that's because the industry has changed. I think it's time for me to go on and do something
I agree.
more challenging.
I agree.
And have more authentic conversations and connect in a more sincere way,
Right.
like we're trying to do here,
Yeah.
than what I've been able to do in recent years.
You don't want to do
That makes sense?
Yes. You don't want to do a text poll on Valentine's Day? Christ.
Chocolate or flowers?
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
What's your favorite candy bar?
I want to take a moment to say hi to our friends at Merson. Merson have been looking after my car and Ted's car for a billion years.
Yeah, I'd really like to get it back at some point.
Yeah. The Mersons, both Ted and I, what we know about cars, you could write on a dime and still have room for your name, as the old saying goes. I don't know anything about anything when it comes to cars. And years ago, I had a used car, and I got it repaired, and boy, did I get tooken, as they say. And somebody said, you should take that to the Mersons. And I met the Mersons. The Mersons are a family. Their name is up on the shop wall where it's been for over 50 years, now on to the third generation. And they made their mark selling tires and changing tires and storing tires. And Montrealers began to trust them for their brakes, their oil changes, everything that has anything to do with a car. They can either fix for you or they know who can get it done for you. There isn't much they can't do.
No, but when you do have something that falls outside of their bailiwick, they'll send you to the right place.
Right.
And I've experienced that with them like 2 or 3 times.
Right.
You need this, we don't do it, but go to this guy, and everybody they send me to is as competent and honest as they are.
And if you go every spring and fall like I used to do, you run into the same people in the waiting room, because those are the folks that just trust their cars, year after year, and it's generations of customers dealing with different generations of Mersons. Anyway, that's the place you want to take your car. The Mersons have been longtime supporters of ours from the days of traditional media to the podcast. Visit them at mersonauto.com.
I tried to make a joke about the Mersons on the last episode, Mo. We were talking about how they can, their mechanics are all fully trained in electric vehicles. They have all the training and equipment that they need to service electric vehicles as well as internal combustion engine vehicles. And I tried to say if you drive a Flintstone car, they can fix that, and they have a podiatrist on site to look at your brakes.
Did anybody get it?
Well, I couldn't get it out. I couldn't say podiatrist. I went like the timing was just totally off.
A podiatrist.
Yeah, but it worked. But it worked that time, and I knew that she's a good room, so I've redeemed myself. You can take it from here. My work is done.
Any disasters that come immediately to mind, Mo?
Disasters on air?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, but they were mostly caused by behind-the-scenes problems.
Right.
It wasn't anybody being a difficult guest. It was usually somebody being a difficult host.
Yes. Yeah.
Or being a difficult, usually a difficult host.
Right. Well,
we're fragile. Morning radio in particular.
Yeah.
It is a dark and lonely place from 5 o'clock on, and people are not usually at their best.
Well, and you came up at a time, as you pointed out early in this podcast, you came up at a time where there were not many models. There are not a lot of women. That took a long time to come around. And I'm not so sure now, like with the way things are, I'm not so sure I would want to be on the radio now with the way things are.
No.
I mean, Ted still hosts a morning show.
God bless you, Ted.
But he's felt the pressure of correct speak. You're not
well, especially with social media now.
Yeah.
You have to be careful what you say on social media, because if you're not, somebody complains, then you get the memo, watch your step, and you know how it is.
That's a really good point. I wouldn't want, first of all, I wouldn't want my kids to get into media even right now, that they're not going to. They're already launched in another direction. But I was I was contemplating going back into radio and a news talk situation. And one kid said, because my sons are 28 and 23, and one said, "Oh, Mom, that's not good. You don't have a filter. And if you were going to talk for 4 hours, there's no way you get through one shift without offending somebody."
That's exactly why you should.
Yes.
Keep decided.
Good point,
but then
Poseidon.
my other son said, "You're not well informed enough."
Is that the judge who said that?
Already on his high horse.
Yeah. My 22-year-old son, Mo, is taking media at Ryerson.
Which is this?
Sam.
Is this Sam?
Yeah, Sam.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
He was born.
Yeah, I know. No, he's 22 now, and he's in sports media studies at Ryerson, but he's already gone beyond sports media. He's doing all kinds of different stuff on the internet, and he's smart, and he's funny, and he didn't get my asshole gene.
They're lovely boys, aren't they? I follow you on social media, and I read your texts with your kids, and they make me laugh out loud.
Well,
They're great kids.
I don't know if you've watched any of Sam's films on social media. I post them. He's got his own little YouTube channel, and he's done some pretty funny stuff. And if he had asked me, and maybe he knew better than to ask me, should I get into media? He didn't ask me. He just told me, this is what I'm going to do, Dad. It would not have been my first choice for him, knowing the lay of the land as I do now. But it's what he's passionate about, and he's going to find his way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kids are all right. I mean, who knew?
Yeah. But was it your oldest or youngest who was creatively inclined?
They're both creatives, but the youngest, Ronan, is really musical and writes them.
Yeah.
Aiden is as an older child. I don't know where you guys are in your birth order, but the older one carries the cares of the world on their shoulders. Not even if they weren't placed there.
Right.
They feel responsible. So Aiden's always been Aiden's a terrific actor, one of the funniest people, just fall down funny. Yeah. But he's cautious, so that's why he's in real estate.
Right.
Because it's important. And he's getting married, and he's all grown up. Yeah. But Ronan's the musician, and he's also very funny.
Yeah, and very
funny,
creative.
Very valued in this in certain circles.
Yeah,
that's the most important thing.
And if I could wish one thing for people who are watching or listening to the podcast, you'd love to meet Mo, but you'd even love to meet her boys even more. They are spectacular human beings, the two of them. They're just wonderful people.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. But they're our shining accomplishment. Yeah. If we did nothing else, we got the nice thing now, and Sam is your younger son?
No, Sam's the oldest. Well, he's not my eldest, but he's my oldest son.
Yeah.
Your oldest son. Yes, you have a daughter as well. The nice thing about having young adult children, apart from the fact that you can go, drinking with them, is that is that a recurring theme? Is that once they're launched, pretty much. Yeah. There's nothing else you can do except, keep inspiring confidence. Right. But you can relax a little bit because your job is pretty much done.
So I'm going to ask you for a bit of therapy here, Mo. What's your day like now? Do you have a routine?
My day's fabulous, actually.
Okay.
It really is.
Do you have a routine, or is it different every day?
Yeah. So I don't get up until I wake up around 7. Yeah. I still wake up at 3:30.
Yeah,
but I go back to sleep. It's one of the most delicious feelings in the world.
Yeah.
But then John gets up around 6:30. He's got a big job and will for a while. So he gets up. He's been working from home during the panty for the most part. But he will bring me a cup of coffee around 8 o'clock, and then I'll do Wordle.
I do Wordle when I get up to pee in the middle of the night.
Really?
Yeah.
You must be very good.
Well,
it must take you a long time to pee.
I'm obsessed is what I am. I find it's an obsession.
It's a perfect little game, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just lovely. And I share the scores. So I do that in bed and catch up on my phone. And then I get up around 8:30.
Okay.
And then I read the paper, old-fashioned paper, and have another cup of coffee, and then I walk the dogs. Now, my eldest dog I put down 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm sorry 16, about that. That must have been tough.
It was, but she was so old. So when I say walk the dogs, it took 40 minutes to take her to the end of the block and back. And then my younger dog needed a full walk. So that takes up all of a sudden an hour and a half of your day.
Yeah.
And then I work out, and then I plan dinner, and then I plan vacations, and then I talk to Wendy on the phone for an hour about what we're gonna do when we grow up, and the day just flies by like a wild horse.
Just going to ask you that because your routine sounds close to mine. Without the dogs and other things, but I'm up. Jess is up before me because she works and she's working from the office downstairs, and I let her get settled and get her things done, and she goes downstairs, and then around 8 or 8:30, I wander out of bed and I have a cup of tea and I get online, and the morning has a couple of things, and then of course I'm the guy that does the errands because I got nothing else to do, so that's fine. And then before you know it, it's like 4 o'clock.
And it's cocktail time.
And I think, well, where did the day go? And
Exactly.
and
I love it.
Yeah,
I really love it.
Yeah, it's really something. And one of the guys, one of my longtime mentors, Don Percy in Winnipeg, it's one of the things he said to me. Don did morning radio for 1,000 years and was one of the all-time greats. He said to me, make sure you have a routine. Don't sleep until 11 and get all, just have a routine. And it's been fun. And as you know, I started a new chapter. Off we went to the West Coast.
I know. Well, you also first of all, you got married.
Yes.
And then moved. I mean, these are things that Ted and I did earlier in our life.
Yeah.
Couple of times.
Yeah. Just practicing.
Yeah.
But that's so wonderful for you that you have this new experience, new place, and a person in your life on a regular basis. This is a wonderful time for you.
Yeah, so it's exciting in a way, and I want this, because we opened the podcast by pissing and moaning a little bit, but I don't want people to think that we're in that headspace, because we're not.
Well, let me add something to that. I have made time for my friends, and my circle of friends has become smaller and more precious in the last 6 months. And I never had time to talk to anybody because I got to go to bed. And people would say, I never know when to call you because your hours are weird. And I was so busy.
Right.
And now in the last 6 months, I've made a concerted effort to spend more time with the people that I hold dear, and it's so rewarding because this is all we really have.
Yeah.
At the end of the day is the people that you love, and to be able to spend time with them is the best thing ever.
Have you had I've had I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. There are people that were in my life, that were in my circle, that I thought were close friends.
Oh, yeah.
Disappeared. Gonzo. Don't hear from them.
Yeah. I've had that.
Yeah, that's and
I got plenty. I got more. I got better ones.
Because you put it beautifully. You said it's become smaller and more precious.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Yeah.
We need to talk about the UPS store. Mo, do you need anything shipped?
Can I ship you anything, Mo?
I'm a big fan of UPS. Take it away.
Well, you were on an errand today that will require the UPS store.
It's a long story, and I don't want to bore you with it because it's a boring story. A friend of mine who used to be in Calgary and then moved to Australia and now lives in England. He's got 2 boys. They want hockey sweaters. And I got to get this T-shirts, hockey sweaters to England. And I was saying to Ted today, I said, I want to get this done. I brought them with me from Vancouver because I want to get it done while I'm here in Montreal, because Montreal's closer to England. Maybe I'll save a couple of bucks. And
I think that's good thinking.
Yeah, and
that's very frugal.
And I thought, how am I going to do this? What should I do? And Ted said, "What are you, nuts? Go to the UPS store." And because I've used them for years. I tell the story about when we were moving and we found a box of dishes, and my wife said, "Oh my God, what are we going to do with these things?" And then she said, "Take it to the UPS store, where they pack everything, and they're so well organized, and especially in this day and age, when people are running businesses from home." They can shred documents. They can copy things for you. They can send faxes. Don't laugh. People still send faxes. They've got packing tape. They've got boxes. They've got the styrofoam popcorn. They take care of it all.
Small business solutions.
Yeah, it really is. And it's what I like about it is they're all franchise owners that live in your community, get to know you, and they really are lifesavers when it comes to things like shipping hockey sweaters to England. So I'll have to visit the one that is closest to me tomorrow. UPS Store Canada. UPS Store, theupsstore.ca is where you want to go. And they're a new sponsor, and our thanks to David Drucker and the,
350 in Canada, 5,000 in North America.
How about that?
UPS
and still growing too.
Yep.
Mo, have you chosen other places? It's Bahamas, Charlevoix, Bahamas. Charlevoix, and then let's see, Charlevoix, and then you went to Miami.
John and I went to play some really bad golf in Miami last week, 2 weeks ago, actually.
Was that Miami's fault or your fault, the bad golf?
It's totally our fault. Really expensive bad golf. But we had a blast. Played 4 days in a row.
Was it? Is it
to Banff this weekend just for a couple of days, and then we haven't done this. This is pretty funny, actually. So we grew up sailing, John and I, little dinghies, family dinghies, and then about 8 years ago, we decided that we would learn how to sail these big boats,
right?
And so that we could charter them, and we took all sorts of courses and went to Greece and Croatia and the Caribbean and usually with friends. It's a pretty expensive thing to do.
One of my regrets is that I didn't go with you.
Well, we're going to go again.
Okay, good. Okay.
Like we're going with Wendy and her husband
okay,
and some
great.
friends of mine from England and the Bahamas. But don't tell them.
Okay.
It's been 2 years or 2.5 years since we've chartered a boat.
Wow.
And I said, and they're big boats. This is a 40-foot catamaran. And I said to John the other day, "You're okay, aren't you?" And he said, "Well, probably. Do we still have the manuals?"
Uh-oh.
Bring the life jackets.
And I got this mental image of us there with the steering wheel and a book and how to sail. And of course, these two other couples they have absolute confidence in us, and I honestly cannot remember how to tie a knot to save my life.
Hey,
and I may have to tie a knot to save my life.
Please tell me you're staying at the castle in Banff, are you?
No, we're staying in Canmore. I have some friends in Canmore.
Oh, okay. Well, that's just as nice. That's just as nice. Yeah.
No, we're not. I'd love to stay at the castle, but we're staying with friends.
The Banff Springs Hotel. Everybody should do that once, and even if you don't stay there, you should walk through it.
For sure. We stayed there last time.
Yeah, such a spectacular place, and a pretty good place to golf too. By the way, not in the winter, but
need to get Fairmont as a sponsor.
Yeah.
And so I know how this works.
Yeah, we could all go Fairmonting. Mo, I just, you're one of my favorite people on the planet, and I'm so glad you agreed to do this. I don't know how to say thank you.
Fellas, any time. When I'm talking about my precious circle, you are part of it. So please never hesitate.
And I want to be on your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. To be a woman of
I want to see if we can make Wendy Mesley laugh.
She snorts. She's hilarious.
I love me a snorter.
We'll make it happen. All right.
God, geez, this was fun. We covered just about everything I wanted to too. This.
I got more. Invite me back.
We will.
My dog down. It's hilarious.
Really? Oh God. Because I said,
I didn't want to tell you about it.
That's the worst email, because I saw you put it on social media, and I didn't want to say anything on social media, and honest to God, I began to tear up, and I think I just sent you like a note said,
you did,
just want to wish you strength.
I think if I do write, I want to write, hilarious stories about horrible situations.
Well, we're not under any time constraints here. Let's hear the story.
That's the thing I was just going to say. The wonderful thing about podcasts is away don't.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just getting a little backtracking here. So I've been sort of the angel of death for the last. Well, it started with my dad 5 years ago, who suffered from dementia, and as the eldest child. And the power of attorney or of health fell to me. So he had dementia and he had no quality of life. And so someone suggested to me that you can put him on a level of care where should he get sick, there is no heroics, but also they don't give you antibiotics if you have an infection. It's a hard decision to make.
So it becomes a palliative situation.
A palliative situation. So I talked to his doctor and he advised it. And so we put him on level 1 care or whatever they call it. And he got an infection the next day and died a week later.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm carrying that with me. All right. But it was the right thing. And then my mother, a year ago, went in to have minor surgery, laparoscopic surgery at St. Mary's in Montreal. And things went south and she just it was the middle of the pandemic, and I was lucky enough to be able to go to Montreal. We drove, and she was already on life support at that point. and they asked me, could they take her off life support? So I checked with my brother and sisters, but I had to make that decision. And it was rough because my mother and I hadn't seen each other in 2 years before that. So it was really brutal. So when it came to the dog, and please don't, mistake this, I'm taking this seriously, but my dog was 16, a large breed dog. They don't usually live that long. She'd been deaf and blind for years. So I kept saying, we got to put the dog down. And my family's horrified with me. I'm like, let's put the dog down, damn it. I've done it for my parents.
Oh my God.
Why are we letting this dog? And this started 3 years ago.
And was she suffering, Mo?
No, but she was deaf and blind and she couldn't get up and she
had no quality of life.
She had no quality of life, but like the boys, and my husband were like, we're not ready.
Yeah.
And so I'd let it go for 6 months, and then we'd carry her up to the cottage, and you'd have to carry. She's 75 pounds. I can't lift her in and out of the car. So anyway, finally, I had. Sounds awful, but I had my way.
You should call the book "The Angel of Death." No, I know what you're saying, Mo.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
it's like that wasn't the hardest thing I had to do in the last few years.
Yeah.
She was, and it was brutal.
Yeah.
And we took her to the vet.
You were with her.
Oh, John and I were with her. They only let you have 2 people in with her because of the pandemic and so on. And it was awful.
Yeah.
Because she hates the vet, didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
But while we were gone, the 2 boys were here, and they decided that would be a good night to get into tequila. In honor of asked us. So
right.
When we got back, they were hammered.
What's Homer Simpson say? Alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
And of course, we joined them, and the next day we were all so horribly hungover and sad.
Was it good tequila, I hope?
It's good tequila,
Okay,
and I think that's the way Asta would have wanted it.
Yes. That's,
Anyways.
what? That's a chapter in the book, Mo, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, honestly, because and I can see how difficult it was for you because your eyes are glassy, and those are
that's the tequila.
Those are big decisions,
I think I'm done now. Right?
Yeah.
I
hope so. Touch wood. Yeah, no kidding.
A happy anniversary to your parents. Unbelievable.
How was that? Isn't that unbelievable?
That's incredible.
They're going to outlive us all.
I believe that.
I'm telling you.
I believe that.
65 years. How about
they
that?
Look fantastic.
They do. My father's still playing hockey.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We're as we said on the weekend. Just before this recording, we had a little gathering for the family got together for it, and my father said and I said, boy, are we blessed?
Yeah,
we were lucky. Yeah. So are we ending on the dog dying? Is that what we're?
I could tell you the story about my cat dying, but I don't want to steal her thunder. That's a good story. That's a good story to go out on.
It is. Yeah. It really is. Mo, I can't wait till we break bread and drink wine and have laughs.
Me neither.
I'm so looking forward to it. I so miss that. We used to, when I lived in Montreal, we would make a weekend of going to Toronto, and it would all begin in the beautiful kitchen in the beautiful home of Maureen and John, and that's where the first drink was drank. And it went from there. Those are all some of my favorite
do
nights.
It again. Yeah. That's for sure.
Listen,
thank you so much for having me on your show.
As I say every time I talk to you, give my love to the boys.
I will.
To John, the boys, and give Wendy our best.
I will.
And we'll be in touch over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to want to talk to you more about the world of podcasts.
Yes.
Like we know what we're doing. We don't know shit from Shinola, but we're gonna help.
We got Poseidon, the god of the sea, steering us through these stormy waters.
That's right. I love you, Mo. Thank you.
Love you too.
Bye,
guys.
Bye, Mo.
Bye. That's Maureen Holloway, and that's a new format for us for the having the guest throughout the show.
I thought that worked out pretty well, actually.
I thought she was
well,
great.
It helps when you have a fantastic guest.
Yep. And she was a fantastic guest. And she's still there listening to us. Oh, no.
No, she's gone. She hung up. She's had enough of us.
Yeah, that's enough of those guys.
I've had enough of us, and I'm one of us.
Maureen Holloway is, like I said, she was on the radio here in Montreal for many, many years. And if you're in the Toronto area, even if you're in the Vancouver area or Calgary area, you probably remember she was all over the place. She's just one of the loveliest people you'd ever want to meet.
And even if you don't know her, you can tell from that conversation how sharp and funny she is, and you can just imagine how good she was on the radio.
Oh, man, was she terrific. A big thank you to the folks at Jaguar Land Rover Laval and our friends at the Mersons, the UPS Store Canada, and also to my friends at Matelas Bonheur.
And to Poseidon.
Poseidon?
Yes.
Grazie.
De nada, senors.
Okay, thank you for staying with us on that one.
Oh, no problem.
Okay,
I've had a long day, but I'm trooper.
You are.
He is that, yeah. I think we're done.
Yep.
Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast, is sponsored by Jaguar Land Rover Laval, where the luxury is unmistakably British, but nobody wears a top hat or a monocle.